Confirmed, FBI arrested judges, uncovered massive trafficking network.
Federal authorities carried out a pre-dawn raid in North Miami, Florida, targeting a luxury mansion owned by two sitting judges. During the operation, FBI and ICE arrested Judge Amina Hassan of Miami-Dade County and her husband, Judge Ahmed Ali, a South Miami Heights city judge, on charges including large-scale drug trafficking, human trafficking, judicial corruption, and conspiracy. Investigators seized over 1 ton of heroin and fentanyl, hundreds of military-grade firearms, and uncovered an underground complex containing narcotic stockpiles, forged identity labs, and detained children. More than 60 trafficked minors were rescued. Following the raid, Operation Clean Wave led to over 427 arrests across Miami, dismantling a trafficking network linked to Somali gangs operating under judicial protection for 6 years. In a quiet luxury neighborhood of North Miami, behind palm trees, iron gates, and white stone walls, stood a mansion that symbolized power, success, and respect. To neighbors, it was the home of two accomplished judges, Judge Amina Hassan of Miami-Dade County and her husband, Judge Ahmed Ali, a city judge in South Miami Heights. Immigrants who had risen through the system, public servants, guardians of the law. But to federal investigators, that mansion was something else entirely. It was a fortress. The first signs appeared years earlier, buried deep in data that few ever examined closely. FBI analysts noticed patterns that didn't make sense. Drug cases tied to the same ethnic networks dismissed repeatedly. Violent offenders walking free without explanation. Traffickers vanishing from court records. Children reported missing, their files quietly going cold. At first, each case looked isolated. A paperwork error, a lack of evidence, a sympathetic ruling. But when analysts mapped the data, a single reality emerged. The same courtroom signatures, the same judges, again and again. The law wasn't failing, it was being used. Investigators soon realized these judges were not shielding criminals out of negligence or bias. They were operating a criminal empire with a level of protection no cartel had ever achieved. From inside the courtroom, they provided immunity. From inside their home, they coordinated logistics, money, weapons, and enforcement. Under their protection, a network connected to Somali gangs expanded rapidly across Miami. These groups weren't small street crews. They had direct access to East African heroin and fentanyl pipelines, feeding America's overdose crisis at an industrial scale. Shipments moved through ports using falsified customs documents. Couriers crossed borders untouched. Arrests meant nothing. Charges disappeared once they reached court. Over time, investigators uncovered a second operation far darker than narcotics. Human trafficking. Undocumented minors, runaway teens, and vulnerable children from ignored neighborhoods were targeted, moved through safe houses, and sold to wealthy buyers across Florida and beyond. Their identities were erased using forged documents produced inside a hidden lab. Once inside the system, the children effectively vanished. To protect it all, the judges hired elite mercenaries, former soldiers from conflict zones across East Africa. These were not bodyguards. They were trained combatants equipped with military-grade weapons, night vision optics, and surveillance technology. They guarded shipments, eliminated threats, and defended the mansion like a war zone. Local surveillance attempts failed repeatedly. Informants went silent. Warrants stalled. Every path investigators tried led back to judicial roadblocks. Until the night Federal Command decided the risk of inaction was greater than the danger of confrontation. Before dawn, FBI tactical teams and ICE Homeland Security units quietly surrounded the mansion. Intelligence confirmed armed mercenaries inside. This would not be a knock-and-announce arrest. It would be a battle. As teams advanced, gunfire erupted. Automatic weapons shattered the silence as mercenaries opened fire from balconies and fortified positions. FBI operators locked shields, returned controlled fire, and deployed flashbangs to clear firing points. The assault intensified as armed guards poured through entrances with coordinated precision. This was not chaos, it was organized defense. Inside, smoke-filled marble corridors as agents breached rooms one by one. Thermal cameras tracked movement. Firefights erupted at stairwells and hallways. Outside, ICE units blocked escape routes toward nearby docks, cutting off fleeing guards using armored vehicles. After nearly 10 minutes of sustained combat, the gunfire stopped. The fortress fell. Several mercenaries lay wounded across the manicured lawn, their weapons scattered beside them. Others were face down in the grass, wrists bound behind their backs, breathing heavily as federal agents stood watch. A few did not move at all. The silence that followed the firefight was unsettling, broken only by distant sirens and the hum of generators powering tactical lights. Several mercenaries lay wounded across the manicured lawn, their weapons scattered beside them. Others were face down in the grass, wrists bound behind their backs, breathing heavily as federal agents stood watch. A few did not move at all. The silence that followed the firefight was unsettling, broken only by distant sirens and the hum of generators powering tactical lights. Against all expectations, no federal agent had been killed. Commanders later called it extraordinary, not luck, but discipline, planning, and restraint in the face of overwhelming firepower. But the operation was far from over. As medics treated the injured and perimeter teams secured the property, interior units began a secondary sweep. This was no longer about neutralizing threats. It was about uncovering truth. What they found next would redefine the entire mission. Behind an ornate decorative wall inside the eastern wing, an agent noticed something wrong. The paneling was too new, too clean. When tapped, it echoed hollow. A pry tool exposed a hidden seam. With a controlled pull, the wall shifted inward, revealing a reinforced steel door concealed behind luxury decor. Beyond it, a narrow staircase descended underground. The air changed immediately, cooler, heavier. The smell of chemicals mixed with damp concrete. Agents moved carefully, weapons raised, lights cutting through the darkness. What lay beneath the mansion was not a basement. It was a fully constructed underground complex. Reinforced walls, soundproof insulation, industrial lighting. Something designed to remain hidden forever. The first chamber opened into what looked like a warehouse. Brick after brick of narcotics stacked with military precision. Heroin, fentanyl, methamphetamine, each wrapped, labeled, logged. This was not street-level distribution. This was supply chain scale. Unexplained fatalities to larger criminal patterns. Community reporting channels were strengthened, ensuring that whistleblowers could report irregularities safely and that their concerns would be acted upon. Evan Marshall, whose observations had set the investigation in motion, was posthumously recognized. Though his life was tragically cut short, his courage had exposed a criminal empire that had operated in plain sight for nearly a decade, and his name became synonymous with vigilance, integrity, and sacrifice. In Dallas, Operation Night Veil became a hallmark of interagency coordination and precision in modern law enforcement. Delta Force operators, FBI hostage rescue teams, ICE investigators, and local tactical units coordinated in real time, executing a meticulously planned operation that rescued hostages, neutralized armed threats, and dismantled the central operations of the trafficking network. 15 hostages, including 6 children, were recovered from captivity, many of whom had been held in conditions designed to break both body and spirit. Evidence recovered during the operation, ranging from issued ledgers to passports and encrypted hard drives, mapped a sprawling multinational criminal enterprise. The documentation and digital records linked operations from Texas to Myanmar, Panama, Cyprus, and multiple points across the Western Hemisphere. The raid sent a powerful, unmistakable message. No badge, no title, no flag, and no position grants permanent immunity from the law. The collapse of the network forced agencies to confront their own shortcomings, rebuild trust with affected communities, and implement proactive measures to prevent similar exploitation in the future. The human toll of the network was stark. Communities had suffered in silence, many unaware of the machinery operating around them. Yet the resilience of institutions willing to act decisively offered a path forward. The operation highlighted the necessity of vigilance, accountability, and courage in safeguarding society from both visible and hidden threats. By sunrise, the streets of the Mississippi Delta and Texas were quiet, lined with armored vehicles, temporary command posts, and exhausted federal agents maintaining a vigilant watch. Arrests, seizures, and rescued hostages represented the tangible outcomes of the operation, But the true success lay in exposing a criminal network that had embedded itself within the very systems designed to protect the public. Operation Night Veil marked a historic turning point in modern law enforcement, demonstrating that justice requires unity, precision, and an unwavering commitment to ethical principles. The raids underscored a harsh truth: corruption grows in silence, and vigilance is the only reliable defense against its spread. The gravest threats are not always external. They can emerge from within institutions, concealed behind badges, titles, or diplomatic privileges. However, accountability, courage, and decisive action have the power to dismantle even the most deeply entrenched networks. For the communities affected, the operation restored hope. For law enforcement, it provided a blueprint for future integrity-driven operations. For the nation, it reaffirmed a fundamental principle: the law is blind to rank, title, or flag, and the protection of life, liberty, and justice remains the ultimate mission. In the weeks following the operation, law enforcement agencies across the country implemented lessons learned from Operation Night Veil. Training programs emphasize the importance of recognizing systemic patterns, connecting previously isolated reports, and acting decisively when red flags appeared. Multi-agency task forces were formed to monitor high-risk trafficking corridors, and intergovernmental cooperation was strengthened at both national and international levels. Public outreach campaigns informed communities of warning signs and encouraged the reporting of suspicious activity, reinforcing the message that citizen involvement is crucial in the fight against organized crime. The social impact of the operation was profound. Families who had lost loved ones found closure as evidence linked previously unexplained disappearances to trafficking routes and illegal operations. Survivors of the operation's rescues received immediate care, including medical treatment, counseling, and legal protection, enabling them to reintegrate into society with dignity. At the same time, awareness campaigns highlighted the dangers posed by synthetic narcotics and human trafficking, ensuring that prevention became a community effort rather than solely a law enforcement responsibility. Operation Night Veil also served as a cautionary tale about the consequences of blind trust. The network had thrived not only because of the cunning of its operatives, but because communities, institutions, and even law enforcement officials had underestimated the potential for corruption to exist within their ranks. The operation forced a cultural reckoning, reinforcing the importance of accountability at every level. From customs inspections to local policing, from medical oversight to intelligence analysis, every actor involved had a responsibility to question anomalies, connect patterns, and act without delay. Ultimately, Operation Night Veil demonstrated that protecting society requires more than law enforcement. It requires integrity, courage, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. It proved that no child, no woman, no man, and no innocent soul is expendable, and that the machinery of justice can, and must, operate even when facing threats hidden behind institutional shields. As investigators continue to track residual elements of the network, the operation remains a blueprint for coordinated, principled action against organized crime, illustrating that vigilance, persistence, and moral courage can dismantle even the most entrenched criminal empires. When the dust settled over Mississippi and Texas, one truth was undeniable: America had acted decisively to protect its citizens. Operation Night Veil restored hope to affected communities, reaffirmed the rule of law, and sent a global message that corruption, no matter how deeply entrenched or shielded, would be confronted, exposed, and dismantled. The operation was not just a law enforcement victory. It was a declaration that justice transcends rank, title, and privilege. The lives rescued, the families reunited, and the systems reformed stood as enduring proof that vigilance, integrity, and courage remain the cornerstone of a free society. Evelyn Markham and her son Adrian linked to CJNG narcotics network. 67 operatives arrested, 4.3 tons of drugs seized, and $138 million frozen. Operation Wolverine Shield exposes one of the largest internal airport breaches in U.S. history. A cartel infiltrated our airport, our systems, our people. Tonight, Michigan takes back control. 4:58 a.m., November 19th, 2025, FBI and DHS agents converge on Detroit Metropolitan Airport. Their target? The airport director's private office. Operation Wolverine Shield is about to begin. An internal audit has uncovered Michigan's largest cartel infiltration. CJNG narcotics have been entering the U.S. through a covert airport gateway. And the mastermind? One woman, Evelyn Markham, Michigan's proud airport director. On her desk, agents found 3 encrypted hard drives containing cartel routing codes and over $72 million in cash. Nearby, dozens of restricted area passes were issued to individuals with no official ties, many linked directly to CJNG. This wasn't ordinary corruption. This was an internal breach turning the state's largest airport into a cartel headquarters, orchestrated by Markham herself. Before dawn, federal agents swept into the operations wing. Every trace pointed to CJNG. Evidence revealed 46 midnight cargo flights over 4 years, vague manifests, impossible waits, and routing codes linked to Mexico. Markham had infiltrated high-access airport roles with operatives, many unqualified or using fake identities. Her son, 19-year-old Adrian Markham, worked night logistics, moving pallets, signaling crews, and relaying messages. A junior operator trained by his mother. The system was so efficient, CJNG operatives called Detroit Metro Airport La Aerta del Norte, the North Gate. At the center, Evelyn Markham. As the investigation widened, the full scope emerged. Michigan had been compromised. The network spanned runways, warehouses, trucking hubs, and private airstrips. In a DHS command center, officials tracked live drone feeds, satellite maps, and telemetry. Acting Regional Director Michael Rohr spoke clearly. This is not just a drug raid. This is counter-infiltration. A cartel has exploited our airport, our contracts, and our people. Tonight, Michigan will be reclaimed. At 2:14 a.m., 840 federal agents mobilized. Blacked-out SUVs rolled across Detroit, Dearborn, Lansing, and Grand Rapids. DHS armored vehicles and FBI hostage rescue teams advanced on CJNG warehouses. Helicopters lifted from Selfridge Air Base, slicing through the cold night sky. Detroit, a warehouse disguised as an aviation parts recycler. Explosive charges tore open steel doors. Flashbangs illuminated pallets as cartel gunmen fired blindly. Federal teams advanced in coordinated waves, neutralizing resistance. Flint, a repurposed aircraft hangar barricaded with steel plates. Agents breached despite signal jamming drones, seizing pallets of meth and cocaine, cargo identical to shipments approved by Markham inside the airport. Grand Rapids, 3 trucks tied to Markham's network attempted escape. Helicopters tracked them, highway units blocked their path. One driver reached for a rifle. Agents responded instantly. The others surrendered. By dawn, federal forces had struck 32 critical targets across Michigan. The coordinated raids led to the capture of 67 confirmed CJNG operatives and the arrest of 9 corrupted local officials, including inspectors, procurement supervisors, and county administrators who had secretly aided the cartel. Multiple airport employees were detained for questioning, exposing a deeply embedded network of internal collaborators. Adrian Markham, 19, was apprehended inside a Detroit warehouse attempting to erase digital evidence from an internal server. His role as a junior coordinator under his mother's guidance had been crucial to the cartel's operations. Michigan had not merely witnessed law enforcement raids. It had endured a statewide confrontation, a war waged in the dead of night, triggered by one airport director's betrayal. This wasn't just a law enforcement victory. Millions of dollars laundered through maintenance suppliers, fake nonprofits, and shell companies across Michigan and Ontario were only the tip of the iceberg. Investigators discovered a deeply entrenched criminal network operating within Detroit Metro Airport, one that had turned a symbol of commerce and public safety into a hub for international narcotics trafficking. Among the most damning discoveries were the Nexus folders, detailed profiles of 48 airport employees, including baggage handlers, runway escorts, TSA contractors, and night shift staff. Each profile documented access levels, vulnerabilities, and payment arrangements, showing how these employees were recruited, coerced, or bribed to facilitate the cartel's operations. Encrypted communications recovered during the investigation revealed the full extent of Evelyn Markham's involvement. The airport director negotiated narcotics delivery schedules directly with CJNG commanders, threatened city inspectors demanding larger payouts, and orchestrated deliberate camera blackouts to create blind spots for narcotics arrivals. Her 19-year-old son, Adrian Markham, acted as a junior coordinator, supervising pallet movements, signaling crews, and relaying messages to CJNG drivers. By midday, federal analysts had confirmed the chilling truth. A fully integrated, multi-state, international narcotics pipeline had been operating under Evelyn Markham's authority for years. Detroit Metro Airport, once a bustling symbol of travel and commerce, had been transformed into CJNG's most valuable northern asset. Michigan was no longer merely infiltrated, it had become a meticulously engineered cartel superhighway. Evelyn Markham leveraged her authority to manipulate airport operations, strategically placing cartel operatives in high-access roles, many unqualified or using fake identities, to facilitate seamless smuggling operations. Pallets of methamphetamine, cocaine, and fentanyl moved through secured storage rooms, loaded onto trucks operated by shell companies, and distributed across the state, even crossing into Canada. The logistical efficiency rivaled multinational corporations, yet the human cost was staggering, contributing to the overdose epidemic and violent crimes linked to cartel activity. At 2:14 a.m. on November 19, 2025, nearly 840 federal agents mobilized across Detroit, Dearborn, Lansing, and Grand Rapids. Blacked-out SUVs rolled through deserted highways while DHS armored vehicles and FBI hostage rescue teams advanced on CJNG-controlled warehouses. Helicopters lifted from Selfridge Air Base, cutting through the cold night sky, ready to support ground operations. By dawn, Operation Wolverine Shield had struck 32 critical targets across the state, resulting in 67 confirmed CJNG operatives captured, 9 corrupted local officials arrested, and multiple airport employees detained for questioning. Adrian Markham was apprehended inside a Detroit warehouse, attempting to erase digital evidence from an internal server. Michigan had not merely witnessed raids, it had endured a statewide war triggered by one airport director's betrayal. Inside FBI cyber forensics labs in downtown Detroit, analysts worked tirelessly to decrypt hard drives, phones, laptops, and warehouse servers. Routing maps traced CJNG narcotics shipments from Detroit Metro Airport to hubs in Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa, confirming an international smuggling pipeline. Financial ledgers disguised as aviation consulting invoices revealed over $127 million laundered through maintenance suppliers, fake nonprofits, and shell companies. The Nexus folders were particularly damning. Profiles of 48 airport employees, including baggage handlers, runway escorts, TSA contractors, and night shift staff, detailed their recruitment, weaknesses, and payout arrangements. Communications revealed Markham coordinating delivery schedules with CJNG commanders, issuing threats to inspectors, demanding higher payouts, and manipulating airport cameras to create blind spots. Adrian ensured uninterrupted shipment movement, acting as a junior coordinator under his mother's direction. By midday, federal analysts concluded the CJNG network was a fully integrated, multi-state international operation running under Evelyn Markham's control. Detroit Metro Airport had been transformed into CJNG's most valuable northern asset. Evelyn Markham had built a criminal empire that leveraged systemic weaknesses, manipulated employees, and exploited aviation infrastructure to create a cartel superhighway. The reach was unprecedented. Shipments of methamphetamine, cocaine, and fentanyl moved seamlessly from secure storage to trucks operated by shell companies, eventually reaching destinations across Michigan and into Canada. Federal agencies discovered documents revealing CJNG plans to replicate the Detroit Metro Airport model in Ohio, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Airports with weak oversight or vulnerable leadership were primary targets. In response, DHS issued a nationwide directive for airport corruption screenings, the most aggressive aviation personnel review since post-9/11. Evelyn Markham faces charges, including conspiracy with a designated transnational criminal organization, large-scale narcotics trafficking, money laundering, tampering with aviation security systems, public corruption, and endangering interstate and international commerce. Adrian Markham faces separate charges, including aiding and abetting drug trafficking, obstruction of justice, and handling prohibited cargo inside a restricted federal aviation zone. Prosecutors highlighted his role as a junior operator under his mother's direction, marking him as a key participant in the network. The revelations sent shockwaves across Michigan. Airport employees felt betrayed. Lawmakers demanded a full overhaul of state aviation oversight. Communities questioned how a single airport director could funnel tons of narcotics into the country while manipulating employees and city officials. Investigators concluded that Evelyn Markham was not a mere pawn. She was a strategic partner the cartel relied upon to manipulate supply chains and airport operations. Her downfall raises chilling questions. How many other entry points and airports across the nation could be quietly exploited? Operation Wolverine Shield may have ended with arrests, seizures, and the dismantling of Michigan's cartel superhighway, but its legacy carries a stark warning. One compromised airport director was enough to transform an entire U.S. state into a trafficking corridor. Federal agencies are now actively searching for other potential gateways that could be operating under the radar, hidden in plain sight.